Welcome to the Damn Good Dogcast. It is Friday, and boy, do we got a show for you. Got Chris over here from the Spurs Up Show, and we're talking South Carolina football today. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure. Like I said, it's crazy. We're coming up on the spring game. I know Georgia's already played theirs, and it's wild, man. We're about to go into summer, go into the offseason. Before you know it, kickoff's going to be here. I know we absolutely cannot wait. So, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a good time to talk college football, man.
Man, you know what? I agree with you. Spring games, like you said, yours has actually got moved to Sunday. We were talking before the show. And I think, for South Carolina fans, I'm curious to see how you feel about this. So this will be the first question. It's a new season. And, from a Georgia fan looking in, from the outside looking in, toward the end of last season, it kind of looked like the Gamecocks had this defeated feel. Had this defeated vibe on them. It's always a good new fresh start. Obviously, y'all got new head coach with Shane Beamer down there. What is your thoughts and expectations, and what are you feeling like with the spring game coming up Sunday?
Well, I was going to say it's hard not to feel down and out and defeated when you had a season like South Carolina had last year. I remember I'll never forget specifically of a 3-game stretch where you give up 159 points defensively. And you just lost complete hope in the program and Will Muschamp and his leadership. And I know, ironically enough, he is now at the University of Georgia. So that's kind of life comes full circle. But, yeah, I mean, it's tough not to get down on that point. But I think that the program got a nice shot in the arm, obviously, and got what it needed when it hired a guy like Shane Beamer. Throughout the coaching search, culture was the word that kept coming up over and over again. And for a lot of schools, I don't know that would have been the most important thing. Maybe X's and O's or maybe something else would have been important. But for South Carolina, it's such a unique place, a special place. We all know the challenges it presents, right? It's not the easiest place to win. It's not like a Georgia that has tradition and has a recruiting hotbed. And it's a place where I think at minimum you should be winning 10 games a year. There's really no excuse. At South Carolina, it's a much different challenge. And I think they needed to get a guy who embraced that, number one, and understood that, number two. And I think Shane Beamer certainly was that guy. And I know Gamecock Nation's been very happy with that hire. So, listen, they're in the honeymoon phase right now, but I'd say it's been a very, very successful spring practice. The overall morale around the program and the vibes around the program are much greater, much higher. You're seeing all these, former players, these former Gamecock greats voice their support and come back on campus. Guys like Alshon Jeffrey and DJ Swearinger and Melvin Ingram, and, of course, Marcus Lattimore and Connor Shaw still on staff, and Pat DeMarco's on staff. I mean, you're seeing these Gamecock legends that really built Carolina football into what it is today, or got it to the promised land, if you will. And, again, Shane Beamer, the value of the fact that he was on staff. I made this point earlier to somebody else, but 2011 to 13, I don't think any of us would argue those are the best teams in school history. But there's only one team that's ever gone to Atlanta, and that's 2010, and Shane Beamer was part of that staff. So, again, I think having him as the head coach, I think it was a great move. I think it was the right move. I mean, listen, there's certainly questions, right? He's never been a head coach before. So, I mean, we have no idea how that's going to play out on the field necessarily, but it's been the shot in the arm this program needed. Again, the overall morale, the overall vibes of the program. You've seen that since the day he was hired, and certainly throughout spring ball. Again, I think it's been a very successful spring. And I know fans are just really excited to, it's a spring game. It's not a game day necessarily, but fans are really excited to get their first glimpse, their first look at what a Shane Beamer-led football program looks like on the field, and they'll get that on Sunday.
Yeah, I know, looking back on it, obviously, when you hear Beamer, everybody thinks the legendary Frank Beamer up in Blacksburg. Right. So he's got that pedigree there. Obviously, I think this is his first head coaching stint. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I know he was with Georgia a little bit, moved to Oklahoma. Obviously, he was up there with his dad in Blacksburg as well. So, obviously with the Georgia coach at South Carolina. But like I said, he has Georgia ties, so we do try to keep up with that. So when you look into that, obviously I think you do get that sense of optimism, right? I remember when Kirby came in after we let go of Rick, you always have that feel of, you kind of get that honeymoon. But for me, I felt optimistic. I felt kind of skeptic at first. Like, I knew Kirby was a good defensive coordinator. obviously with the Bama and the championships there. But it was just interesting to feel because you always don't know what to expect. And so looking at Sunday, I know what's the expected attendance there?
15,000. So they originally put it at 9,000. Since then expanded to 15,000. I think with all the COVID stuff loosening up, and again, I'm certainly not the guy to ask about all that stuff. I'm not an expert. That's kind of above my pay grade. But no, they expanded it to 15,000 with things moving in a positive direction in that regard. And they've also expanded baseball capacity at Founders Park to even 50%. So, which we'd love to see. And I think, obviously, as you know, Georgia fan, the entire SEC, I think the goal and the expectation is we're going to be at full capacity in the fall, which is, I know, doesn't matter who you're a fan of. That's what we all want. We want to see packed stadiums again and rowdy tailgates and all that. So, but 15,000 fans will be there Sunday. So,
well, that's honestly looking at it this way, we had, I want to say it was like 20,000, I think it was, but nonetheless, you have this feeling of normalcy, right? Even if it is a limited capacity, because last year we didn't have spring games, we didn't even have an off season. So you look into that, and
right. I've never been looking so forward to a spring game after last year, after just completely losing it, man. I'll never take spring ball for granted ever again.
It's the small things, ain't it? Like it's weird.
Yeah, I joked to somebody. I don't know if you're a Braves guy because you're a Georgia fan, but I'm a Braves guy too. And I joked to somebody, the MLB season is so long, and at times you feel like it drags out. But I was like, man, after losing sports last year, I will never take for granted a 7:05 first pitch. Braves Phillies in the middle of July ever again,
Yep. So. No, I completely agree. I think you look at COVID and the whole situation, right? And it kind of takes it for granted. And I was talking with a couple guests in previous shows, and we were talking about how COVID impacts recruiting. I love recruiting. I love it. I just eat it all the time if I could. So with the recruiting landscape right now, obviously the big news, June 1st. Open is back up, right? The official visits can go down. I know Georgia fans are super excited, and I'm honestly more excited for the kids. I was talking with Brock Vandegrift's dad on a previous show, and how they navigated through that, right? Because his class, for the 2021 class, they didn't have official visits. They didn't even have unofficial visits technically.
Right.
So it was definitely something interesting to see how they navigated through that. But obviously now you look at June 1st and it comes back to normal. And obviously, looking into the recruiting aspect, I'm sure that South Carolina is going to have some real big names coming in.
Yeah.
I was looking into it. What's the kid's name? Antonio Williams from Dutch Fork.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big target.
I heard he's expected Sunday. and honestly, and I'm not trying to bash this, but with your recruiting class where it is now, if you pick him up, that's a huge boost.
Yeah.
A huge boost. So, I'm looking at this, and you see all these kids coming in. The move to Sunday probably hindered this a little bit. Are there any names that, for South Carolina fans, if they're listening, who should you expect to be there? Do you have any list of that yet?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily for Sunday, but I want to go back to the point that you made about June 1st and the dead period. I mean, that's definitely huge for all schools. And I mean, like you said, you're asking kids to make life-altering decisions when they've never even been on campus. I mean, that's tough, right? That's really tough. I think it's definitely, though, huge for South Carolina and Shane Beamer especially, because the Gamecocks, again, you don't have that tradition to sell. You haven't recently had on-field success to sell. But what you can sell is that pretty shiny ops building. What you can sell is the game day experience at South Carolina, because I think you'd probably agree it's unique. And when Williams-Brice is rocking, it's one of the best atmospheres in all of college football, in my humble opinion. But getting guys on campus, getting them in the building, getting them in that ops building, showing them that, when you're competing against a school like a Georgia or like a Clemson, and of course South Carolina is sandwiched between those two, it's about showing kids, especially those in-state kids, that, hey, you don't have to leave the state to achieve everything you want to achieve in college. You can go to a school, get a great education. You're going to be in this beautiful facility, and you can win here. We have a coach that's done it here before, and we're bringing back these former players that can preach that to you, that, hey, you can do it here. If you want to stay here in state, you don't have to go to Georgia. You don't have to go to Florida. You don't have to go to UNC or Tennessee or whatever it may be. You can stay in state and achieve all of your goals here. Again, get a great education, have the college experience, and you can win football games and do it at one of the best facilities in the country. So right now, I mean, I don't have a list as far as guys I don't think anybody will be there Sunday, but I know that Shane Beamer and staff are working very hard right now. They're putting together the list for the official visits. I feel like every single school has been doing that, kind of getting ready and gearing up towards that. But no, I think you can't overstate how big of a deal and how important that's going to be, not just for every school, but especially a school like South Carolina, where, again, I think that's going to be probably like that and playing time are going to be the top two things they're going to sell to a kid. So I think it's going to be really, really important. And again, we saw in recruiting with Shane Beamer, I mean, everybody expected that first recruiting class is going to be brutal. I mean, it really wasn't his class. You know what I mean? He comes on campus with 2 months to do a job that other coaches have been working on for 3, 4, 5 years. You know what I mean? So I don't hold that, the 2021 signing class against him. They hit the transfer portal. They did all they could to get guys that are going to be impact players. I think you'll start to see the recruiting return back to normalcy this year for South Carolina with the top 25 class. I think it will happen because the Gamecocks, again, it's crazy. No matter who the coach has been or the lack of success, they've always seemed to recruit at a top 25 clip. I mean, they really haven't had much trouble and much issues doing that. And again, that wasn't Will Muschamp's problem in Columbia. It was everything else. So, it's about getting the talent on campus, but also developing it. And that's what Shane Beamer was hired to do. And that's what he'll try to do in Columbia.
Yeah. And I know, kind of talking about your point here with the recruiting aspect, you look at Beamer coming in, obviously, this year. And, from an outside standpoint, it's kind of the hardest time to be introduced as a new head coach because you're trying to get your recruiting class set up, but really you have to try to build relationships through Zoom, things like that. Yeah. So you're right. South Carolina's been around that top 25 level, if not just outside of it. Right. Yeah. So I expect them to come up there and, it's going to happen. It's just things are slow right now. Obviously, like I said, new head coach in these times it's brutal because you can't really build those relationships as well as doing it in person.
Yeah,
so
to that point on the recruiting side of things, I'm going to give my guy a shout out. I talked to my guy last preseason. I'm sure we'll speak again, but Pick Six Previews, who does a really, really good job on social media. He puts together a preseason magazine. But one of the most intriguing rankings I saw in the preseason last year was basically, and I forget exactly what he calls it, but he has like a calculator, which basically equates, over a 5 to 10 year span, whatever, the level to which you recruited, your recruiting rankings versus your win total. And basically, it's a formula to, are you getting the most out of your talent? South Carolina, I think, ranked 74th out of 76 teams he ranked. So again, recruiting has not been the problem. It's been getting the most out of the talent that they get on campus. And again, that was maybe the biggest knock of the previous regime. And really, I think that is what Shane Beamer's been hired to do, is develop players. Because at South Carolina, at least right now, you're not going to recruit at a top 10 clip. You're not going to recruit at a top 5 clip. We all know that. But Steve Spurrier even showed it. I'm not comparing Shane Beamer to Steve Spurrier, but I think at South Carolina, you can still win with top 25, top 20 classes, but you better be a damn good developer of talent, and you better have a good eye for it, because people love to talk about, some of the best players in South Carolina history were 3-stars. And that's a fact. I mean, guys like Connor Shaw, the best quarterback in school history. DJ Swearinger turned out to be arguably the most, you see him behind me, the most decorated defensive back in school history. I mean, it's possible. Melvin Ingram, you know what I mean? But you got to be able to develop that talent if you're going to hang your hat on that. That's what you have to do at South Carolina. And again, that's why Shane Beamer was hired.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, obviously you look at him at Oklahoma, right? So one of the things, obviously, Muschamp leaves, he gets ousted, obviously comes here as a senior analyst for Georgia. One of the things I looked at with South Carolina was with Muschamp being there, defensively, it was not a bad issue. It was the offense. And that kind of ties into his defensive coordinator history.
Yeah. Until the final season.
No, I mean, I have to agree with you on that one. But, obviously, and like you said, the recruiting, it's literally hard to recruit these, not less, I would say lesser known, I guess. It's known, but it's not, like you said, it's not your Florida, it's not your Georgia, your Alabama.
Not as established a program, don't have the tradition. Yeah, all the challenges we all know about. Yeah.
So, I mean, but you look at it, though, in your defense, with Muschamp there was pretty good for several years. And you look at the recruitment, and this is where I think Georgia fans kind of forget about this. Two big names that we were looking at in previous years, I want to say the last couple of years, Jordan Birch, You look at Jordan Birch's recruitment, obviously goes to, stays in home, stays in the home state, I guess. And then, Marshawn Lloyd. So those were a couple names that I think are making pretty big impacts so far. And Zach Pickens was another one. Zach Pickens was a damn good player too, still is. And I know he's making an impact on the defensive line for y'all. So obviously you can tell that, he did a good job recruiting.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the roster this year, I mean, they recruited very well on the defensive front, because I would argue, the defensive line will probably be the strong suit of this football team. I think it's probably the best position unit on the field for South Carolina. So certainly, on the defensive side, I mean, there were, J.C. Horners and McQuamu. I mean, they got their fair share of good athletes. And, of course, last year just kind of fell apart, spun out of control. But, to your point, like you said, recruiting, I don't feel like was at least the number one issue. There were other things that were the problem, like you mentioned.
Yeah. No, like I said, looking into it now, you're talking about developing players, and I think Beamer can do that. I really think he can. Saw what he did with Virginia Tech, obviously at Oklahoma and Georgia as well. I think he is a good fit for the school. Just got to see what happens, and I think the hard part about taking a head coaching job in the SEC is whether you're in the East or in the West, you're going to play powerhouse teams.
Oh yeah,
and as
and when, especially when your rival's Clemson. Yeah, you're.
Man, I'm telling you a little personal story here. So I was stationed in Charleston, down at the Air Force Base for 5-6 years, and I'm coming home. I'm in North Carolina, so for me, I would take 26 to 77. These routes, right? 26 to 77,
right,
85.
Of course.
And I'll tell you what, I had an extended weekend. It was a Thursday night. I hit 26 and I turned on to 77, exit 5. You sit there at nighttime from the 77, you see Williams-Brice. You can see it in the daytime and especially at nighttime. It was the night y'all played Clemson. I want to say 2013 maybe.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man.
Incredible night.
It is a spectacle. And obviously we have Sanford Stadium, but Williams-Brice it's its own little city.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's unique because it's, which I thought this was so cool, the first time I got to go to Sanford. And I mean, I'm not one of those fans that do I like Georgia? No, but I think Athens is awesome. I think it's gorgeous. I've had my fair share of fun nights out there, and I can tell you it's a good time. But yeah, it's South Carolina's definitely unique, man, with the stadium, how it's, Sanford and Clemson, they're kind of nestled in the campus, and Willie B is just it stands out. You cannot miss Williams-Brice when you drive by it. So
no,
certainly a spectacle, especially when it's lit up. Yeah, especially when it's lit up.
I remember that game had I think that was when Spurrier was still there, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was a hyped up game, obviously. And trust me, obviously I'm from North Carolina, but when I was stationed there, I never understood this. Right beforehand, I never understood how people could. I always thought it was funny, but how can people pull for a fighting chicken? But until I got to Charleston.
Hey, like the hat says, an ass-kicking chicken.
Hey, fair enough. No, so, obviously, obviously I didn't really realize that. So you get stationed in South Carolina, and you see the hatred between Clemson and South Carolina, and you're like, oh, shit. This is people take this shit serious. It's just interesting to hear it, but it was just fun, right? But and I've been into Columbia as well. Been there several times. It's an interesting little city, especially for the state capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I live here, man. I live right between the baseball and the football stadium, and I mean, I love it, man. Right in the middle of the action. Obviously, for what I do, it's fantastic. But no, Columbia's a cool place, man. And I especially hate when I hear people say, "Oh, being in a city, it hurts us in recruiting." I'm like, why? I mean, and no knock to Athens or a place like Clemson, but it's why? I mean, I think both have their advantages. You know what I mean? And it's not for everybody. It's not going to be for everyone, but there's plenty of selling points about being in a city with things to do and places to go. And, you're going to build connections and relationships beyond the field of play. And, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but maybe a little bit.
I mean, South Carolina's doing good in baseball too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. They're ranked 11th right now.
Yep.
Yeah, ranked 11th and lost game 1 last night to Arkansas, but Arkansas, the number 1 team in the country, and they got the doubleheader today. And, hey, the last 3 weekends, South Carolina baseball's lost game 1 and came back to win the games 2 and 3. And one of those times was against Georgia. So, I mean, this team has just proved that they seem to love to have their backs against the wall. So hopefully today will be a repeat of that. But no, I mean, it's a fun time in college sports, and especially Gamecock country with this weekend with baseball going on, because obviously I'm a big baseball guy, but especially football. The podcast we dropped this morning was a complete spring game preview, and like I said, for fans to get because I think you and I probably both agree. I mean, the spring game, it is what it is. You don't draw conclusions from the spring game, God forbid. You don't, come out of that saying, oh, we need to fire a defensive coordinator. Like, some fans do, I guess. But I think you're going to drive yourself batty if you do something like that. But no, for fans to get their first glimpse of Shane Beamer and his program on the field of play, because we've been kind of teased, I feel like, since he got here with all the social media clips and the videos, and the media department's done a great job promoting it, but to actually be there in person, which I will be, and actually see the product on the field. Really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Talk about your point taken away from a spring game, right? I don't know if you were aware of this. You probably saw this. The Rubbing the Rock, right? The Clemson page. Did you see that article?
Talking about the basically
G-Day?
Oh, I did not see about Georgia G-Day. They did write one about South, kind of basically saying that we staged an NFL head coach to talk good about our ops building, which is like the most absurd. I mean, I just don't understand how bored you have to be. Because, like, I don't know if, I had somebody tell me this one time, and people said, like, Chris, you don't really talk about Clemson ever. And I'm like, why would I? Like, is there just nothing going on where, like, we need to, like, I mean, if Clemson does something stupid, then sure, we're going to highlight it and laugh at it. But, like, to just go out of your way to reach so hard to try to pull down your rival, it just, I mean, especially like when you're on the Clemson side of things and y'all have been winning. There's so many things you could do, and you choose to go that route. I mean, so please entertain me. I'm sure their article about Georgia was also absurd.
So I'll give you let's just say that's a brief rundown, right? So the article basically was just talking about how Clemson was way better than Georgia in almost every aspect as it stands right now, based off of the G-Day, what they saw.
You gotta love that.
And you know this as well as everybody in the NCAA. Georgia fans and Clemson fans are obviously, we're looking forward to September 4th.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be. I'm looking forward to that game. That's gonna be a hell of a game.
I think you look at it as the biggest game of the year, especially regular season.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously, and plus we have a rivalry with them as well.
This is. I'll tell you this. That's going to be a game where we're here. The chatter started up again. It's been Georgia's year every year since 1980. But if it is going to be Georgia's year, I think that's when you got to win, right? I mean, I think that's probably how dog fans are looking at it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I know you don't cover Georgia, but we look at it this way. Obviously, we want to beat Clemson. There's no question about that. Obviously, 2013, 2014 was the last series with them. We split it. We took 2014, obviously, which was, we have that saying that, hey, we beat you last.
I was actually in Sanford for that game. I didn't go in the game, but that was one of my my fun nights in Athens. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, so that game was fun. Obviously, we had Gurley that moment with the kickoff return and stuff like that. But looking forward to now, right? So, I'm trying to be as realistic as possible when it comes to this game, and I don't want to. You have to respect Clemson because of what they're able to do, right? And people are, I'm hearing some Georgia fans like, "Oh, Clemson ain't gonna be shit. They lost Trevor, they lost Travis Etienne," and I'm like, "No, I don't think you understand. Like, Clemson is still going to be very good. It's going to be a very good game. So obviously, you have to kind of tell those people to kind of, hey, look, don't sleep on them just because you think they lost Trevor and Travis." Even though Trevor and Travis was amazing to watch. Just saying, it's still going to be the most anticipated game. But you look at Clemson, and we look at it, and Georgia fans thought it was just firing the first shot. Obviously, it was. Because, even not just Georgia fans, but people were like, really? Like that's a hot take for sure. But, obviously, Georgia's in a good state. And I think I don't want to make it sound something like, too homerish, but we're in a situation now where I think we have the offense to push it to the next level, get to the playoffs. In the past, you've seen this. We've always had that run-first offense.
Oh, yeah.
And it got you so far. But now that the game's evolved, I think you've seen this. If you just kind of even look here, take the USC hat off and look at the NCAA, the game's changed, and you have to have that high-power offense.
The teams that win the national title typically are scoring 40 points a game. I mean, just bottom line. The old adage of defense wins championships. it only goes so far these days. I mean, you certainly, Alabama, I thought they suffocated Ohio State to a degree, but they also scored like 45. So I mean, you got to have that. You do. You're not going to win games 20-17. We all see like the college flashbacks of like Georgia, Tennessee with David Pollock, and they're winning the game 17-14. Like, that's just not happening. You know what I mean? Like that. Or when South Carolina played Georgia and it's like 13-7. Like, that's just not happening anymore. So you got to score. You got to score to win, man. Everybody's fighting that. Hey, Shane Beamer said the same thing. He was complaining after the last scrimmage of lack of explosive plays, and he's like, I come from Oklahoma. Maybe I'm spoiled, but a lot of explosive plays, and that's just what it takes to win. So I'm hoping, if nothing else, I'm definitely hoping to see that in Columbia, man, because if nothing else, it's going to make Gamecocks football fun to watch. And I mean, if you're not going to compete for titles, you got to at least make the product entertaining. You have to. You know what I mean?
Honestly, you look at Spurs, that's what he did, really.
Yeah, and I look at a guy like Lane Kiffin last year at Ole Miss. Was Ole Miss a good football team? No, not particularly, but damn, they were fun to watch. I think if Shane Beamer can just do that,
Alabama. So
yeah, if Shane Beamer can just do that, it's going to be a massive improvement over what we'd seen the previous 5 years.
I mean, I'm sure he learned some things from Lincoln Riley that that Oklahoma offense is going to be nasty this year too. I look at it that way. I generally look at Oklahoma as a title contender this year.
Oh yeah.
But,
absolutely.
I think Beamer's going to take away some key things from Oklahoma, and I think he will instill it down there in Columbia. So you're looking forward to that, though. But we're going to transition into something else here. We're going to do the 2021 Gamecock schedule, and I'm going to stop my camera here so that we can make this work here. Oh, there we go. Let me see what I got here. Where did it go? I am stopped. Can you do me a favor and turn off your camera real fast? I want to see.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Let's see. Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right,
there we go.
So obviously we're looking at the schedule here for the Gamecocks. I want to kind of do a way too early kind of prediction here. And we'll go 4 games at a time.
Yeah.
So this schedule, obviously, for anybody that's paying attention, it's going from left to right here. If you're hearing it, I'll read it out to you.
Yeah.
First game, Eastern Illinois, and then you go to Greenville for East Carolina, down between the hedges. And then you go home against Kentucky. Looking at these first 4 games, I think, in my prediction, I think you go 2-2. I think you beat Eastern Illinois, and I think you beat East Carolina. Looking at Georgia, though, I just think there's too much of a power gap there. And I'm not trying to sound, obviously, I'm a Georgia fan, but I'm just trying to be as realistic as possible. Last year you take into context, what we were able to do again in the run game. I see that being a little bit different, though. I think Birch and Pickens are going to make it harder for us to do that. But then you look at Kentucky. I look at Kentucky as a super strong defensive team. And I don't know how the offense with Luke Doty and things like that, if they're going to be able to score enough on Kentucky. And I don't know if Kentucky's offense can score enough, but their defense can hold teams out of the end zone. So my prediction is 2-2, and I want to get your feel for what you think out of these first 4 games would be.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Rob, you don't have to sugarcoat it with me when it comes to the Georgia game. I promise. I don't take it personally. But, listen, I think Eastern Illinois first game's a win, certainly. That's going to be an awesome day at Williams-Brice Stadium, the true beginning of the Shane Beamer era. Week 2, and it's funny, you're putting me on the spot because I gave my way too early predictions as well. Way back in December, like right after the season ended, and I had the Gamecocks at 6-6. So we'll see how true I am still to that prediction. And I'll actually give my official predictions for the season probably the week of SEC Media Days. I'll lock it in at that point. Yeah. But I think Eastern Illinois definitely is a win. At East Carolina, I'll tell you this, Rob, this might be to me the key game of the season because you look at ECU, and most teams wouldn't be worried about this one. And do I think South Carolina is going to lose the football game? No, I do not. But going to Greenville, ECU, as we all know, has a solid football program. It's just simply one you cannot lose, right? Like if you're going to have a solid, successful 2021 football season, you can't lose this one. Do not sleep on the Pirates. Weird things happen in Greenville. With that being said, I do think you'll win the game. I think you start off 2-0. The game week 3 at Georgia, like you said, man, just call it for what it is. Shane Beamer's first year. It wouldn't matter if it was his 5th year. Georgia is head and shoulders above everybody else in the SEC East. They're without a doubt the East favorite. For a lot of people, they're the SEC favorite, and they're a college football playoff favorite. So, I think South Carolina, will it be a typical South Carolina Georgia game, a battle for at least a few quarters? Sure, but Georgia's going to win that football game. There's no question in my mind, and I think the Dogs will be locked in, ready to go. So I think South Carolina falls there to 2-1. And then here's the interesting thing with that Kentucky game, week 4, because I think South Carolina, to fans go through the schedule and we predict, win, loss, whatever. To think that South Carolina's season is going to be that predictable and that typical. Like, when does it ever happen that way? I mean, when does college football ever play out to where exactly, especially for South Carolina, a team that wins one they shouldn't, loses one they shouldn't, it seems like every single year. So I'll go ahead and tell you this. I think out of Kentucky and Auburn, which that Auburn game is going to have a ton on the line for South Carolina in the sense of, Mike Bobo left to be the OC there, and Coach Rocker left to, go Auburn as well. And there's just a lot of bad feelings with South Carolina and Auburn right now, and that game's at home the week before Clemson. So I think South Carolina is going to split those two games. So I'm on the fence about Kentucky because I do agree with you. They're a solid football team, and I think they're a team that, is going to be really strong defensively. Mark Stoops done a great job building that program up. But I think that's one you should expect to win, especially at home. If you want to be taken seriously as a football program, you just simply have to beat Kentucky. So I'm going to say right now that South Carolina beats Kentucky, starts in that first 4-game stretch, 3-1. Again, it would not shock me at all if they lost to Kentucky. Like you said, Kentucky's a good team, but I think they'll split out of Kentucky and Auburn. And right now, I'll give the nod to Auburn. I'll give the nod to the Gamecocks beating Kentucky. So again, I think they're 3-1 through 4 games.
And honestly, with depending on how things go, obviously a first-year coach, anything can happen. So obviously,
right.
way too early. I'm gonna knock it. And the reason you were talking about Georgia, I don't forget about 2019. So
yeah.
Yeah. Honestly,
I don't think the Dogs are going to sleepwalk through a game with South Carolina anytime soon after that one. Let's put it that way.
I look, and obviously me as a fan, I try to not over. Obviously, I don't play the game, but I don't.
Right.
When I come to talking about teams, I don't overlook anybody because we saw what happened with Tennessee. We saw what happened with Florida and Georgia Southern. Like, stuff like that happens. And by God, you let Georgia have, oh my goodness, the media would go berserk if something like that happened. So, for me, I always try to keep that like cautious optimism. But I could honestly see your 3-1, especially with Kentucky losing Terry Wilson. I just don't know if Gatewood can be the guy.
Yeah.
So I could see the 2-2 or 3-1. So we're pretty close there. Yeah. So moving on to the next 4, you play home against Troy, and then you go to Neyland Stadium, and then home again against Vanderbilt, and then you go to Texas A&M. This one I've got you at 3-1. So you would for me you'd be 5-2. No, sorry, 5-3. Sorry, my fault. So you'd be 5-3 based off of my predictions. I think Troy. Troy's a good team. I know I've seen them play. Troy's a good team, but I just think that South Carolina can overmatch them and win the game. You look at Tennessee and Vanderbilt. I'm going to be honest here. We're both SEC East teams here, and we follow these guys. Right. Tennessee is in a dumpster fire of a situation right now. Vanderbilt, I don't even think they deserve to be in the SEC East. They're just there for academics. I know those are kind of hot takes there, but that's just how I feel sometimes. So I look at those 3 wins right there, and Texas A&M, even though they lost Kellen Mond, Haynes King is going to be a good replacement. I haven't seen enough of him yet, obviously, but I think and let's be honest, Kyle Field is a hard place to play. So I could see that. Like I said, I see 3-1, and you're looking at 5-3. Going into the back third of the season.
Yeah. So for the second slate or the second set of 4 games, it's funny. I'm going to backtrack first. I am going to put Kentucky as an L because, again, I'm going through this in my head, and I'm like, this is not going to go as easy as I think it's going to go. So I'll say this. They're going to start 2-2 because here's the thing. You look at the first, 6 games, and fans are talking about, or 7 games. You're saying, because – yeah, first 7 games. And because I agree with you, they're going to beat Troy. I think they're going to beat Tennessee, who's a dumpster fire, even though it's in Knoxville, and that's been a house of horrors for South Carolina. They're going to beat Vandy. There's no way South Carolina starting 6-1. Just no way. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm as big a fan as anybody, but there's just no way. this team will start 6-1. And that front half of the schedule, it is extremely favorable for South Carolina. You look at it, I mean, even if you start 5-2, man, the vibes and the overall just morale, it's going to be insane in Columbia. You might dip your toe in the top 25 at that point.
No,
But then the second half's going to hit you. That gauntlet: A&M, Florida, Mizzou, Auburn, Clemson.
6-1, yeah, I think you're the issue there is the way the last season ended for you. Where they rank you right now is the key there.
Yeah. I'm not really even concerned about getting in the top 25. I'm just trying to make the point that like Columbia will be shaking. You know what I mean? Columbia's going to be buzzing if you start the season 5-2 or better. But it's just. I think predicting this team to start 6-1 is, I think it's a little bit irresponsible, to be honest. Like there are just holes on the roster. There are realistic problems. And again, these teams you're playing, again, like Kentucky, even with Tennessee being a dumpster fire, man, by that point, what it's going to be week 6, I mean, you wonder, does Tennessee have anything figured out at that point? Like I said, Knoxville's been a house of horrors for the Gamecocks. But I'll say this again. They beat Troy. They beat Tennessee. They beat Vandy, but lose to A&M. I have absolutely no hope against A&M anymore. I think you've lost like 7 in a row against them. The last 2 games have been blowouts. You're at their place. Until the Gamecocks beat Texas A&M, I'm picking that one as a loss every single year. So, again, I hate to backtrack and sound, indecision. But, again, like I said, you're putting me on the spot here. So I'm going to say you go 2-2 in the first 4 instead. And you go, because like I said, I think it almost makes more sense for South Carolina to pick this team to lose to Kentucky but beat Auburn. That's just something we would do. So I think you go 2-2 in the first 4. I think you go 3-1 in the next. That would put you at 5-3 going into that last 4 games.
Yep. So I mean, if we're on the consensus, we're at 5-3 right now. The good thing is this: you look at South Carolina, and if this is the way it plays out, you're right there at the bowl berth, right?
Yep, right at bowl eligibility with 4 games left. Yep.
So moving on to the last quarter, or not the quarter, but the last third of the season, you bring in Florida, then you go to Como, and then you have the home games to finish the season. So you got Auburn and then Clemson. This is where it starts to really kind of, I wouldn't say just disintegrate, but it becomes very difficult. Very difficult. Right,
for sure.
So looking at this, I think Florida lost way too much to really be a true threat for a national title. Do I think they can be in the SEC East hunt? Sure. But I think Florida comes in and gives the Gamecocks an L there. I think you go to Missouri. Missouri is a weird place to play.
Yeah,
it's a very weird place to play. And I talked about this before. Eli, their new, the coach is going to be in the second year. I think this is a game that really gets you into bowl eligibility here. I think you go to Missouri and you make that signature win and get Beamer to go bowling, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then moving on to Auburn and Clemson. Auburn, I don't know how I feel with Harsin there. Looking into Bo Nix. Bo Nix has been kind of average to me from what I've seen, especially against us. It's just the thing there is with Harsin there now, it's kind of, we don't know what to expect with that, but nonetheless, I think Auburn's defensively is just going to cause too many problems. So I give the Gamecocks an L there. And then Clemson, I hate to say this, but I don't see this being a game. I think you have to give a complete L there. So basically, you're 6-6, and honestly, for a first season with Beamer there, that's actually really good. Just for what it's worth, in my opinion.
I'd agree. I'd agree. I think, listen, making a bowl game in year 1, that is the goal, and I think that's the expectation. But certainly, that's the goal, and I think that spells a successful first season. You and I, again, are very similar. I think the Gators, like you said, they lost a ton. Georgia's head and shoulders above everybody else in the SEC East, but Florida's still better than South Carolina. I will say, I do think the Florida game provides the best chance of a big upset this year for South Carolina.
I believe you there.
That game's at home, like you said. Florida's lost a lot, and South Carolina has. Go ahead.
Florida's coming off the cocktail party as well. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, and Florida's also. Yeah,
coming off
South.
the
Yeah,
Cotton
you
Bowl.
catch them at a good time, and South Carolina Florida's been a really competitive game the last couple of years. Like the Gamecocks, for whatever reason, have seemed to play Florida really close. I mean, last year's game could have been even closer if Will Muschamp and Mike Bobo knew what a 2-minute offense was. But either way, the games have been really close. But I do think you dropped that one right now. I'll pick that as an L. At Missouri, like I told you, man, I think the Gamecocks split. Or I don't think I told you this. I told you I think they split with Kentucky and Auburn. I think they're also going to split with Tennessee and Mizzou. I just think 2 road trips, like you said, Tennessee is a dumpster fire, but Knoxville has not been kind to South Carolina. And that South Carolina-Tennessee game, for whatever, I mean, it's always down to the wire, always close. Like I said, Knoxville's been a house of horrors. I'm nervous about that one. But then at Mizzou, and I think the Gamecocks do beat Tennessee, but at Mizzou, unfortunately, I do like what Eli Drinkwitz is building. And Columbia, Missouri, again, hasn't been a very, very favorable place for us to play lately. I think South Carolina actually drops that one at Mizzou right now. I'm going to pick them to lose that one. But again, like I said, splitting Kentucky and Auburn, I think the next week with all the emotions, the Mike Bobo thing at home, the week before Clemson, South Carolina coming off of 3 straight losses, I think they will rebound. I think they'll upset, call it an upset, whatever. But I think they will beat Auburn. To get that 6th win. I think they'll be desperate for and fighting for that 6th win, that bowl game win, if you would have punch bowl eligibility, to get to 6-5. So I think they'll win that game to get to 6-5, beat Auburn for the 2nd straight year, by the way. Yeah. And then, like you said, the season finale against Clemson, man, I mean, at home, I think Shane Beamer will get this rivalry back to respectability. I don't think this year's the year, though. Clemson's just, and Gamecock. Soon. And yeah, I mean, in Gamecock fans, Gamecock fans hate to hear it. And listen, I hate to hear it. I hate it too. I mean, I'm a diehard Gamecock, and this rivalry has become flat out just uncompetitive. Call it for what it is. Is it more competitive than and that's really going to be the measure for Shane Beamer. Is it because under Will Muschamp, I mean, the games were just complete blowouts. I mean, they were over by halftime. Do we at least see South Carolina make Clemson work for it? Do we at least see South Carolina make this a competitive game? To some degree, you know what I mean? At least go down with a fight, we'll see. But to pick the Gamecocks to pull an upset would be just, having your garnet glasses on. I don't see it. So I'm saying with you, man, I got the Gamecocks finishing up 6-6. I know we've got them getting there a little bit differently, but I do think Shane Beamer will get to a bowl game in his first year. And again, I think either 5-7 or 6-6 is probably the pick for this team in year 1 of Beamer. Again, what's more likely 7-5 or 5-7? I'd honestly probably lean to 5-7 at this point because there's serious holes on the roster and there's there's depth issues, there's things you got to fix, but certainly getting to a bowl game I think is a realistic expectation. I think with the talent on this team, now you've got to avoid injuries, you've got to avoid other things such as that because again, like I said, I think depth is the number one issue and fans need to have patience because the only way you fix depth, as you know, Rob, it's through recruiting. You got to go recruit. You got to go get ball players. So what I want to see in year 1, Rob, the number one thing I want to see, I just want to see a well-coached football team. The record, honestly, I mean, you want to win games. You want to see it produce wins because that's how you build confidence and guys start to believe, hey, what we're doing here makes sense. It's working. We're seeing results. But I just want to see a well-coached football team. A team that's disciplined, a team that plays the game the right way, a team that is buying into the culture and the system and, what these coaches are telling them. Because once you do that, once you have that ingredient, it's like, okay, now let's go get some big-time ball players. Because I don't give a damn who your coach is. If you don't have good players, you're not going to win games. Hey, players win games, coaches lose them, right? So, go get you some big-time ball players. But again, I think getting to 6-6, that will be the goal. I think right now, like I said, you're putting me on the spot, but I think right now, I've been saying 6-6 all off season. I'll lock in my picks 2nd or 3rd week of July. I feel like I'm going to be right at that 6-6 mark, maybe 5-7. I'm really trying to not go into this season with any crazy expectations. Because like I said, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of momentum. The morale is extremely high around Gamecock football right now, which is great, and as it should be. But there's real issues on this roster. So, and you play, like you said, you play a lot of really, really good teams. I mean, you think about it. Georgia's certainly going to be ranked. A&M's going to be ranked. Florida's going to probably be ranked. Mizzou might be ranked. Auburn might be ranked. Clemson's going to be ranked. So, I mean, that's 6 out of the 12 teams you play,
Oh, absolutely.
But I definitely think getting the non-conference slate back with Eastern Illinois, East Carolina, and Troy. Those are 3 games you should win. Vandy gives you 4. Out of that, can you find 2 more wins out of Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, and Auburn? If you can just go 2-2 in those, yeah, if you can just go 2-2 in those, I think that's very realistic, and I think that's something you can do. So 6-6 will be the goal. If you finished 5-7, I wouldn't be surprised. And hey, maybe if things break well, if Luke Doty turns into that dude, if your running back tandem is going to be as good as advertised, and you can just find a couple of guys to step up on the outside, and defensively, maybe if you can find a couple of dudes to play DB for you, I think the front 7 will be good. Maybe 7-5. Maybe it happens. And that'll depend, obviously, on some of the teams you play and what type of seasons they have, and do they deal with injuries? Do they deal with adversity? Whatever. But somewhere in that 5-7, 6-6 range is where I think you'll see Gamecocks football end up this year.
Yep. And kind of to your point here, I'm going to kind of go touch back on a few on the last 4 games here that you were talking about. Obviously, before that, though, you look at what we projected 6-6 here. Obviously, these don't include injuries, things like that. This is just what we're seeing right now.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
I look at South Carolina football in this right here. First year with Beamer. I want to, you're talking about here from just me looking from an outside looking in. I think what makes the most noise here is if you see the team play motivated and play hard all year. And I want to see Clemson become the rivalry that it used to be. Even if it's not a close game, I want to see it tough, physical, kind of what Georgia Tech is, something like that.
Absolutely.
So you want to see that fight. I want to see the fight come in against Clemson. I want to see, do things right there. And I think from a fan standpoint, from the Gamecocks, if you're a Gamecocks fan, obviously this is your dog fan speaking here. However, I genuinely believe it gives South Carolina fans hope for the era of Beamer if you do that. So if you get close to a bowl game, like I said, 5-7, 6-6, maybe even 7-5.
Yeah, and fans, and dude, back to your point, fans just want to see South gonna compete in these big games. That was the problem with the last regime, man. I mean, you were getting your doors blown off. You can't show up and just be completely uncompetitive. There are teams that aren't on the level of Georgia and Florida and Clemson, but they're showing up and they're at least giving these teams fits. They're at least competing in these games. That's what you got to see. That's what you got to start to see more of is, South kind of showing up in a big game against a team maybe they're not supposed to beat and play up to their competition, play better than they're expecting. That's what Steve Spurrier was able to do, man. You always felt like every Saturday, no matter the spread, no matter the opponent, hey, we have a chance. We at least have a chance. And you got to get back to that, man, because it really reached a point last year with Muschamp where just pure apathy set in, and fans stopped getting excited for game day. And
lost.
When you get to that point, that's a bad spot to be in. So again, I think that South Carolina will get back to that again. I think it's going to be a fun season, and like I said, I think getting to 6-6, getting to a bowl game, if you can do that, I think that's a very, very successful year one for Shane Beamer and something you can build off of.
Yep, and to your point here, you were talking about the biggest upset potentially being Florida, and I'm going to back you on that claim, and here's why. I believe with the state of Florida right now, at least from what I'm seeing it, and I'd love to talk to a Florida Gator fan or insider, whatever you want to. I'd love to talk to them to kind of get a more genuine feel here. But from what I'm feeling,
right.
They lost so much offensive firepower, and they brought their defensive players back, but their defense was, in my opinion, Swiss cheese at best. So you look at that, and from an offensive standpoint, I said it before: Pickens, Birch, your front 7 on the defense is going to cause problems. And I think the key to that upset would be to cause Emory Jones or whoever's at quarterback, cause them enough fits.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and just keep yourself in the game, kind of similar to what happened with Georgia in 2019, you keep it close, but you know what I mean? You sit there, you give the fits and force turnovers. I think it can be done. It might not be as far of a stretch to say that it could be the upset of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, again, we're talking about that though. Like let's say you upset Florida. Like, it wouldn't shock me like if you lost to Tennessee. Yeah, like with South Carolina football, man, it's just going to be all over
exactly
and I guess you know what, me saying that is the mindset and mentality Shane Beamer is trying to break out of Gamecocks. I think that's what he's fighting. You know what I mean? That's kind of part of changing the culture, because with Spurrier, we got to a point where that wasn't okay anymore. It's not okay to lose a game you shouldn't lose. You should win them. You know what I mean? And hey, that's how Georgia fans think. That's how Clemson fans think. It's not this laughing it off like, oh, we'll we'll lose to Pitt this year, or Georgia saying like, oh, we'll lose to Missouri. It's like, no, you shouldn't lose that game. You absolutely shouldn't. And if you do, there's going to be hell to pay. So that's what Shane Beamer's kind of fighting, if you will. But I make the joke because we've just seen it the last 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, under, like I said, the previous regime. But no, it's yeah. I think you could you could put all those games in a blender, mix it up. You could put them in a can, shake them up. I think you're going to get 6-6, 5-7, no matter what. Like, I think there's some we could pull many combinations of wins and losses, which teams you beat and which ones you lose to. I think 5-7 or 6-6 is probably where this team will land, no matter what.
And honestly, looking at that though, and from a Georgia perspective, 5-7, you're wanting to basically pitchfork and
right. I mean, listen, two different programs, two different sets of expectations. I mean, two different universes right now. So, I mean, you definitely can't compare and contrast. But, just like I said, from the South kind of side of things, that's kind of what you're looking to shake and what you're looking to build to is I think South Carolina, I think if you talk to any Gamecock fan, reasonable Gamecock fan, and this is just, I don't want to speak for everybody, but this is just me. Nobody is asking Shane Beamer or any coach for that matter to turn South Carolina into a college football playoff team every single year. Nobody's saying that. What I think are realistic expectations for the South Carolina football program are kind of like what you see from like a Michigan State, where you're on average 8 to 9 win program a year, and maybe every 3 or 4 years, either you got the right schedule, you got the right quarterback, you got the right team as a whole, whatever. You got a senior heavy team, whatever it is. But every 3 to 4 years, you realistically challenge, you push Georgia, you push Florida to get to Atlanta and compete for an SEC title. I think that's very realistic for the Gamecocks. Like, I think that should become the standard. You know what I mean? Like, it should never be okay to miss a bowl game. And I'd say that right now. I don't give a damn,
especially
what's happening. Yeah, when you have all the resources and the facilities and the fan support, and you're in the best conference, and you have the recruiting base you recruited to the clip that you have. There's no excuse not to do what I just mentioned. But I think realistically, South Carolina, if they can build themselves into, which I think it's realistic, I think they can. But if they can build themselves into an 8 to 9 win a year program, and like I said, every 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, you're realistically challenging. And I mean, South Carolina's beaten Georgia when they've been terrible. So to act like they couldn't do it, you know what I mean? Like, and that's always a competitive game. It's, I know Georgia has very much so has the upper hand in the series, but I had a buddy tell me, South Carolina is like that gnat in Georgia's side that just won't go away. Which fine, it is what it is.
He's not wrong by means.
Yeah, it is what it is. We'll take it, whatever. But I think you can build the program into that. Nobody's asking Shane Beamer, like I said, to do what Spurrier did even and win 11 games 3 years in a row. Nobody's asking him to do that. But like I said, if you can get to that 8-9 win a year mark consistently, and then every couple years just give yourself a shot at Atlanta, I mean, I think that would be amazing for the Gamecocks football program. And then once you get to that point, hey, then you start figuring out, how do we get to the next level? That's kind of what Clemson did. You know what I mean? Like, you got to start somewhere and got to start building. So
let's be honest here. Before Dabo there, it was kind of
they were very much a 6-7 win program. Yeah. I mean, that's what's so crazy now is I still see them that way. And I'm like, I just can't believe what's going on. But, Dabo kind of did what Spurrier did, but just kept it going in the sense that, like, he made Clemson the sexy spot, man. He just did. Kids want to go where it's fun, where they're winning games, where they're getting rings. I mean, where they're in the national spotlight, they're ranked, like guys are going to the league. He made it that attractive spot. I mean, Georgia's the same way. It's
SEC bias.
Hey, man, kids are growing up saying, man, it looks pretty fun to be a dog. It looks pretty fun to go to Clemson. Like, man, I can go play, I can go win, I can, because I mean, coaches are selling it. Hey, man, you come here and you ball out, you're going to go to the league. I mean, there's no question. You're going to be a dude,
You just got to wait your turn. Almost.
Right, for sure. But, even, I saw the clip like Saban. I think that was the clip that wasn't supposed to come out or whatever. But, I mean, dude, he made the point where he's like, yeah, people that are telling you that, they're insulting your ability, that you couldn't come in and win a job and play. And so, I mean, kids go to schools for different reasons. Obviously, you're a huge recruiting guy. I'll be honest, I'm not as much diehard recruiting just because it's hard for me to get really invested in like what a 16-year-old is thinking. Like, like it's so far off, and kids flip-flop, and it doesn't really, in my opinion, mean a damn thing until they put pen to paper because they can change their mind so much. Oh, no, but of course, I say that, but recruiting's the lifeblood of college football. I mean, anybody that doesn't admit that's just an idiot. So I definitely admit that, but Kids choose schools for different reasons. Some guys are going to come to South Carolina because, hey, I can play right away. Some guys don't give a damn about that. They're like, bro, I want to go win. I don't care if I don't play till I'm a senior.
Yep.
I'm down to sit the bench and get a ring. So it just depends. It just depends, and you just got to find the right. This is for every school. You just got to find the right guys to fit. Your vision and what you're trying to build, and your culture, and and all those fancy coach terminology words. But now I'm excited, man. Like I said, it's after not having spring ball last year and the season being so really crazy as it was last year to have this season upcoming and to have the spring game on Sunday. I'm most certainly looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know. I'll be watching it. Or tell everybody, if anybody's curious on watching it, where can they find it?
As far as the content.
Well, no, as far as the spring game.
Oh, the spring game. So it's on SEC Network Plus. Yeah, 2:00 kickoff, SEC Network Plus this Sunday. So, or if you're in Columbia, you want to come to Williams-Brice Stadium and buy a ticket for $5, I guess you're more than welcome to. But yeah, SEC Network Plus, 2:00 kickoff on Sunday. Got moved back because of the rain in Columbia tomorrow. So
just a note. Obviously, Georgia's G-Day was on SEC Network Plus. Keep in mind, if you're trying to watch that Network Plus, you do need an ESPN subscription there, if I'm not mistaken. So you would log in, and then it would be in the channels there. It can kind of be difficult, but if you're interested, reach out to me, reach out to Chris, and we'll be able to kind of walk you through how to get to it. Speaking of that, Chris, if people want to reach out to you, man, how can they find you?
Yeah, so the Spurs Up Show, we're on social media, basically all social media platforms at the Spurs Up Show. Pretty simple. Also our website, thespursupshow.com. The podcast, which we post every single day, Monday through Friday, comes out on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast, you're going to find it there. Also, we're on YouTube, the Spurs Up Show. Like I said, all social media. We've also got a store. We sell merch, tsus.store. Again, I don't think there'd be any Georgia fans that be interested in that. But if you just want to check it out, tsus.store, we get really creative with it and have a good time with that. But yeah, man, just basically all over the internet, man. The SpursUpShow.com, the Spurs Up Show on social media. Hey, we're even on TikTok. We're all over the place, man. So, and I'm on social media at CPhilly19 on my personal handles. But the Spurs Up Show is where you can find all the content, again, across social media at the Spurs Up Show. And then all of where you listen to your podcast, you'll find it there as well. So
thank you, sir. If I'm not mistaken, I go through the 7-6 apparel and stuff like that. They don't have Gamecock stuff, but they do have SEC stuff. So if you're a Georgia fan, I'm going to give them a shout out as well, since we brought up the merch. The76.com, great company. Just saying, I love it. They have Braves. You're a Braves fan.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing line of a nice Atlanta collection there. Obviously, they got Georgia collection, stuff like that. So give them a shout out as well. Chris, man, look, it's been a blast. I've had a great time sitting here for actually going on an hour. Don't feel like it, but thanks again for coming on the show, man. Whenever you want to come back on, you just let me know. We'll make it happen. Yeah,
I appreciate the opportunity, man. Thanks so much. It's always fun talking college football, and like I said, it's great to see Gamecocks and Bulldogs getting along at least in the off season, if nothing else.
Well, no, you're right. You're right. and obviously when we play Clemson.
Yes. It's funny, man. Growing up in North Augusta, South Carolina, right on the border, it used to be like I'll be honest. I used to hate Georgia and Clemson about the same, but since Clemson started winning, they're just insufferable, man. So as much as I may dislike Georgia, I hope Georgia beats the absolute shit out of Clemson. I'll be honest with you, bro. At least shut them up for a few weeks. We'd appreciate it.
Well, at least for a week.
At least for 1 week. Yeah. At least for a week, and then they can go play Wake Forest in their annual scrimmage and beat them 60-0.
I mean, SEC bias, basically ACC spring games every week.
Yeah, basically. The spring game is every week for Clemson. So.
All right, Chris. Hey, man, like I said, it's been a pleasure, and I'll catch you around, all right?
I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Not a problem. All right, guys. That is all for today. Hope you had a good time listening in. Obviously, you can sit here. If you want to follow the show, check out the website, damngooddogcast.com. Check it out. You can find all your platforms. You can find links to your platforms, find links to YouTube. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, do what you got to do there. Make sure you follow. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, reach out to the website as well. You can leave your information there. Let me know what you think. All right. And on that note, guys, I am going to call it a wrap. So, like I said, Sunday, if you want to watch the South Carolina spring game, all means SEC Network Plus 2 o'clock. And on that note, go Dogs. Ever since I started podcasting, I've used Buzzsprout, and let me tell you this, you cannot go wrong with Buzzsprout. The team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. One of the hardest things about creating and starting your own podcast is not knowing what to do. Buzzsprout, it's super easy. They will help you out in regards to what to do. Buzzsprout will get your show listed in every major podcast platform. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and Buzzsprout is the best partner you could imagine. You'll get a great-looking podcast website, audio players that you can drop into your other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening, and other tools to promote your episodes. And there's a lot more than just that. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get your message out to the world. Follow the link in the show notes and let Buzzsprout know that we sent you. Get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for the paid plan, and it helps support our show.